You're listening to the Flow Theory Podcast.
Ladies and gents, I am your host, Wade Peary, and boy, oh boy, you better get out the way when number 61 is rolling down the field. Ladies and gents, we got the man, the myth, the legend, former Virginia Cavalier great Elton Brown in the house, and I am super fired up about it. Consensus All-American at right guard 2004 for the Virginia Cavaliers, and a two-time Jacobs Blocking Trophy Award winner for the best offensive lineman in the ACC. Let me tell you something. When number 61 was running down the field, you better just watch out. You better call somebody, because Elton Brown would absolutely destroy people in the open field. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, Big E. How's it going, big fella?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, man. Excited about it.
Yeah, super pumped to have you on, man. Two-time Jacobs Blocking Trophy Award winner, Consensus All-American in 2004. Really love watching you play for the Who's. Just want to go ahead and get down to it, Big E. Let's talk about some of your moments playing for the Cavaliers and your moments when you were in the zone for the Who's. Like, were there a few moments out there when you just felt locked in and you just couldn't be stopped?
I think one of the things is, like, going into each game, you try to mentally prepare yourself to go out there and be in the zone. But then you get in the game and things get to flowing, and you just have games that stick out a lot more than other games. Like, I remember being a sophomore playing Clemson, and we were actually on the goal line going in, and I think it was like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and we called like a reverse, and it was to Billy McMullen, and I didn't know till later, but when he got the ball, he tripped over Shaw's foot, so he was stumbling. So, but when I got around, it was just me and a DB, and I kind of killed him, and I just wiped him out completely, and I think that was like the first major. Coach Groh used to have these things called Elton moments. And that was like the first Elton moment. And to me, like, it was just always about playing the best I could and capturing those moments. So throughout my time at Virginia, I've had a couple of those Elton moments where they stood out a lot more than other plays. But I just try to be locked in every game, man, and give it my all, play for the guys beside me.
I know I heard you talk a little bit on the Jerry Ratcliffe show about the Maryland game. Elton, talk about that a little bit, because Coach Groh was talking to Jerry about a time in that one when it was a screenplay to Wally Lundy, and you cleared the road for number 33.
So it was actually, like I said, going into that game, it was another game where, you know, we were locked in and we wanted to, I think we were playing at the time, we were both tied for second or something like that. So we were playing for so second place at the time. So being locked in, it ended up, we were up pretty good. It was 3rd and 27. Like I told Jay, I thought everybody in the stadium knew, like, it was either going to be a screen or a quick play or a quick pass play. So 3rd and 27, they ended up going man, which was crazy. So we ended up getting the man, and our center, Zach Yarbrough, he got out in front of me, and he ended up cutting the linebacker. Once he cut the linebacker, it was just me. It was me and the first person I saw was the DB. So Wally made a good setup move where he dipped in and jumped back out. So the DB was off balance. So I killed him, and then when I got him down, I just kept going, and like close to the goal line, I just saw another DB coming. So I said, let me take him out too. So it was a great time. It was a great play. It was one of those plays where I always remember. It's not too often, especially in college football, where you're able to take two guys out in one play. So it was great, man. I had a ball. I go back and watch that play a lot, man.
So for that Maryland game, I mean, was there anything in particular like before that game when did you feel anything in particular like I'm going to have an amazing game this game, or it just kind of locked in on that play in particular?
My thing was Maryland had a linebacker, E.J. Henderson. He was up for the Buckets, great linebacker. And that season he had been on a tear. Like he was killing everybody he played against. So to me, it was always I wanted to play against the best guys, man, and I wanted to perform against the best guys. So when you get an opportunity to get on that stage and play against somebody of that caliber, you always want to show up. So to me, going into that week, it was always about like always win your individual matchup, but anytime you can get a chance to get your hands on that guy and kind of show him that you're a good player as well, you want to do that. And that was my thing. That was going into that week. That's what had me locked in. Like I wanted to play the best. So if we're going into a game and people consider you the best, I want to see it. I want one of us gonna leave good. One of us gonna leave is considered the best, and one of us gonna leave just being good. So that was my thing, just to make him show up, like and have fun. And I'm pretty sure that was his mindset into the game. Like they say, this is a good guard, so I want to see. So that was my mindset going into the game. I was locked in.
Yeah, one of your quotes that I heard on the Jerry Ratcliffe podcast that I thought was really awesome, and watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, it really reminded me of the mindset that Michael Jordan had, that every game he wanted to show up and didn't want to disappoint the fans, coaches, players. He owed it to everyone to give it his all. And I heard you say similar things on the Jerry Ratcliffe podcast, and the way you played out there, it certainly showed every single game.
Yeah, my mindset was always, and I remember first meeting with Coach Grover and me just asking him for opportunity, and I told him, like, Coach, if you give me an opportunity, you won't be disappointed. So to me, every time you lined up, whether it was practice, every time you went into a classroom, every time you went out into the community, it was always my goal to be the best Cavalier that I could be, because I felt like I owed it to Coach Groh. I felt like I owed it to the community, the fans, my teammates, because without those guys, like, I'm nothing. So it's easy to go out there and play your hardest. That's easy, but when you want to be your best every single day, and that was my mindset. That was my thing, just to continue to be the best I could be, because I felt like I owed it to that community. I owed it to my teammates, Coach Grove, the rest of the coaches, and I mean everybody out there watching. I just didn't want to disappoint. Like, if you took your time to come watch us play, like, we want to give you a show, and that was no different. I was part of the team.
Yeah, you certainly did put on a show, my man. One of the quotes I told you when we were messaging before this interview was Nick Saban. One of the quotes that he always says, I've seen him during practice, is finish the play. And he yells it and he stamps his foot on the ground. Every time, like, whenever I think of that, I think of you and how you would finish off. When you're going after a guy, it wasn't, I'm going to get in this guy's way. It's, no, this guy is going to be tasting grass and dirt after I'm done with him. God, it was so much fun to watch. Like, my favorite part of your uniform was the way you would put that tape all over your wrists, like all the way down to your forearms. Was that something like you just did out of like habit, or like did you just like the way that made you like feel going before the game?
Well, it was crazy because back in high school, I used to have a problem like with my thumb. So what I ended up doing is I watched like with the boxers and stuff. So the boxers would tape it up and it'd go all the way up their forearm. And I'm like, well, yeah, if these dudes can survive, 12 rounds and they don't have no problems and issues, I'm gonna take myself up like a boxer. And in high school, I learned how to do my own tape. So, like that was my thing before the game. Like you say, get in the zone. like my thing was when I get to the stadium, do the same thing. I walk out the locker room. I walk straight to the goal post that's closest to our locker room. I walk directly to the 50. I pray. I give thanks for being there. I walk I walk the other 50 yards to that goal post. And once I circle around, and that whole time I'm just thinking about the game. I'm thinking about everything, last minute adjustments, assignments, those things. And once I get back in the locker room, I go get my ankles taped, and I put on my whole uniform. And while I'm putting on my whole uniform, I do my thing. I get in my zone. But that moment, like right before it's time to go out, I usually always do my tape then. And it was just like the last moment before boxing's about to come out, and he put his gloves on. So he put his tape on, and then he gets gloves on. So that was my thing. That's how I kind of got locked in mentally.
That wrist tape, it was an epic part of your uniform. And honestly, I can't remember a Virginia lineman that taped their wrists up the way you did, but I loved it because it was just like part of your uniform.
Yeah.
One of the more surprising things I found out, like researching for this, was that when you were a freshman in high school for the Hampton Crabbers, you quit football because you said they hit too hard, and your mom told you to keep playing and said to hit harder. Talk about that a little bit.
So the thing was, actually at that time I wasn't at Hampton yet. I was at Heritage, but I hadn't played football my whole life. Like my first time playing was in the 9th grade. So when I got out there, I was like, man, I really didn't like football. So it was just like I was like, man, I'm quitting. Like I'm not dealing with this. So going home, and like my mom knew nothing about football. Like it wasn't like one of those parents where like you're going to do this and we're going to benefit off this. She didn't know anything about football. All she knew was you decided that you're going to play. So regardless of what happens, you're going to finish the season. We can talk about you playing the following year when the season's over, but you already went out there, so you're going to finish the season. And so, we go on and we talk back and forth. I'm like, look, man, they hitting too hard. I don't want to play. So she was like, well, either you hit them harder or I'm going to hit you. And I think at that moment, that's kind of where the whole Big E thing was born right there.
That's funny. So she gave you the nickname Big E?
Oh, she I don't. It's crazy because I don't know where it came from actually. What year? I know in high school. I think it was in high school somewhere around that time. So maybe it is credited to her. I whether the name was credited to her or not, I know those hits was definitely credited to her.
That's funny. I tell you what, you played with so many great players during your time at Virginia. I mean, just rewatching the 2 Continental Tire Bowl games, I'm just like, man, like Virginia had so many guys back then. Angelo Crowell, who is one of the more underrated players in Virginia football history, really one of the best linebackers in Virginia football history. Daryl Blackstock, Rich Bedison in the 2002 season. Talk about those 3 trio linebackers.
I mean, it was just even going beyond those guys. Like when there was Earl Sims, Earl Robinson, we had Dennis Haley, we had Raymond Mann. Like our linebacker core, there we came, and it was Amar Brooks, and it was Cal Parham. So, like, our linebacker room was as deep as our offensive line room. So you can only imagine the battles that we had in practice, just with going up against our linebackers. So I always tell a story about Earl Sims that one morning we had a 6 a.m. practice one time, and Earl was just out there he was upset we were out there at 6 o'clock, but and I was a freshman that year, and Earl was one of those guys where if he hit you, you felt it. So it was just one play where we were doing inside running. He blitzed like 4 plays in a row, and it was just me and him 4 plays in a row. Bow, bow, bow. So it kind of at that moment that was I credit that practice as well because it allowed me to understand, and I have played some games up until that point and things like that, but it allowed me to understand, like, every play you got to strap up and you got to be ready to go. So, but that's a credit to the linebacking core that we had. And I know you named 3 guys, but it's so many guys that sat in that room that were so instrumental in our success. And I just had a ball competing against them, and I had a ball watching them on Saturdays and Thursday nights.
Who was the toughest player that you've ever had to block during your career?
Florida State had some good guys. Darnell Dockett, Travis Johnson. They were 2 great defensive tackles. But to me, I think, like, going against like a Chris Canty and practice every day, like that prepared me for whoever. Like it was rare that you got that combination, like a 6'6", 290 guy who could move and who was athletic, and so he prepared me for whoever I faced. So, and I had to see him for 4 years. So, so that was my toughest battle right there for 4 years. So, but I mean, he went on to do great things, and it showed. I was extremely hurt and sad when his senior season ended with him on crutches. It kind of set us back a little bit, but it was just sad to see it end that way for him. I was hurt for him, but that was the guy, man. Like he got me ready, he got me prepared every week, and we could sit and have conversations just about life and those type of things. So he was extremely helpful on my journey.
Yeah, I was at that Syracuse game when he took that helmet to the knee. You knew it wasn't good, and you could just hear a pin drop in that stadium. Quite honestly, out of all the years being in Scott Stadium, that was probably one of the quietest moments that I can remember. I mean, it was just dead silent in that place. But exactly. Super thankful that Chris went on to have a super successful pro career, and now he's got a great broadcasting career. So he's done really well.
Yeah, exactly.
The 2002 campaign, Biggie, really to me, like all your seasons were special, but to me, there was something magical about that 2002 team. Just like you guys had so many different things kind of bounce your way, and sure, you didn't have the most amazing record, but like you guys just found a way to persevere in certain situations. I felt like this is what I felt like was the turning point of the 2002 season. I thought it was the South Carolina game at home. I will never forget this play. Muffin Curry did the lawnmower drill, rips the ball out of a guy's arms. The ball was literally right beside the boundary, and it just stopped perfectly on the ground. I'll never forget that. And we jumped on it, and you guys ended up winning that game. But I thought it was such a momentum swinging moment, and just kind of a microcosm of just how magical of a season that 2002 campaign was.
I think that I would agree. I think what ended up happening was we all came in, like I came in with Coach Grove in that 2001 season, and it was still some guys left over from the prior class and things like that, and Grove kind of wanted to implement the way he wanted to do things. So that season was a rough one. We ended on a good note, but we understood, like, buying into what he was saying, what we could get accomplished. So going into the off season of that 2001 season, going into the 2002 season, like, we knew if we took the weight room serious and we held each other accountable, that we could go do some special things. And at that time, like, UVA was kind of like a middle of the pack team, but so we all took pride in wanting to be the change and wanting to catapult Virginia football back to what it had been. So, to go into that season, we definitely got some breaks, but I think a lot of it went to the way we worked in the off season and the way we came together. And that season started the plethora of the next few seasons that we were successful. We were successful 2002, 2003, 2004. I graduated in 4. We were successful in 5. So I think we went on a run till about 2007 where we didn't have a losing record. So, I think you have to start somewhere, and I think that season and especially that game kind of kicked off that run, and we just rode that wave, but we understood if we buy into this thing and we do what we need to do, we can get to where we're trying to get to.
I'm very fascinated to hear about the 2002 recruiting class. It was ranked number 4 in the country by a lot of analysts. I cannot tell you how excited I was to see all of those guys take the field for the first time. Like when I got to see Wally Lundy, Michael Johnson. I mean, there were so many guys in that recruiting class, but I tell you, like I could tell certain coaches, they kind of give you little hints in fall camp as to whether or not which players are going to be truly special. And I'll never forget the quotes from Al Groh before that 2002 season, the way he was gushing about Wally Lundy. Knew he was going to be special from the start.
Yeah, that whole class, that class on top of the class that we had, and then the class after that, it helped us put together some great runs. Speaking on Wally, you had a guy that had excellent vision. He knew how to find the hole. He knew how to get to the end zone. You know how to find the end zone. And I think he was the ultimate. Between him and Pearman, it was like, to me, one of the greatest backfields in college football at that time, because they both had things that they did well. To me, Alvin Pearman did everything well. He could catch out the backfield. He was a tough, hard-nosed guy. And then Watley was that guy that I could find the end zone regardless. So, you had that 1-2 punch, and then we had some great guys up front. So it was, and we had 2 great quarterbacks with Schaub and then Hagan. So it was one of those things where it's like we talked about that 2002 season. It helped catapult us to some great success.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about Alvin Pearman, Elton. Alvin Pearman, quite honestly, you could put him on the list of one of the most underrated players in college football history. Like, I think a lot of people forget about Alvin Pearman, but you go back and look at his tape, he was ridiculous. I mean, he led the ACC in all-purpose yardage in 2004. Some of the catches that guy made, I remember the Virginia Tech game, he made that catch where he went airborne. God, I mean, he must have jumped about 4 feet in the air for that ball.
Yeah, and he was, and what a lot of people don't remember, he would return the punt. He would return the punt and go out and take the first snap on offense. I recall a game where I can't remember. I think we were playing Akron, and Akron had a guy who you could tell it was kind of like their game plan, where it was like, look, we're gonna knock this guy out. So like they punted the ball, and Pearman called a fair catch. And the guy comes flying down, and before Pearman even touches the ball, he hit him. Nowadays, you can't go into it, but I think Alvin had a concussion. But he still went out there, and the next play, he took it like 56 yards to the crib. Like, so that shows you, like how tough he was. Like, it was, he just took this hit, and you could tell he was kind of out of it, but he was still in his right mind to know, okay, we're going to run this play. This is where the hole's going to be. And he had the acceleration to just burst through there and go score. And it was like a 56-yarder. So that was, to me, every time I think about Alvin Pearman, like I think about that game and that play, because that's what exemplified who he was. Like, he was tough, hard-nosed guy. It didn't matter who we were playing. And it didn't matter how many times you hit him. He was coming to play. And as an offensive lineman, you love guys like that who, hey, just give me a little bit. And both our backs are that way. But just with him, we came in together, and just to see him grow and be, like I said, I agree with you. I think he's one of the most underrated college football players, especially one of the most underrated ACC guys ever. I think he definitely was he definitely could have been first team All ACC 3 years. So I agree.
You know, I tell you a funny story. I have one of my memories about Alvin Pearman was, and I've read about this a number of times. You guys were playing Duke in Durham, and Alvin Pearman had a cast on his right wrist. I'll never forget this play because they called a flea flicker. And Pearman's in the huddle. He's like, "Oh God, what do I do? Like, I'm not supposed to be in the game." And he stayed in, and the way he chucked the ball back to Schaub, he flexed like both of his elbows out and just kind of chucked it back to him. And Schaub hits Michael McGrew. I think it was Michael McGrew down like about a 30-yard catch, something like that. But that play to me, it was a game-changing play. And for Alvin Pearman to toss that back to Schaub, like that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and like you said, that exemplified who he was. Like, you know, it wasn't. He's like, man, we're not gonna waste the time out. We're not gonna look. I can get it done, and that's who he was. And you know, like you said, he got it. It was funny looking, but he got it done.
And he also had the hook and ladder play in 2001 where Billy McMullen dumped it back to him. And I was amazed looking back at that play how close that ball was to touching the ground. But Alvin was able to save it and take it to the house. So I'll never forget listening to that. I was listening to that game on the radio, and me and my brother were just going nuts.
Yeah, that was one of my I think that was my second or third start at the time. It might have been my first start. So yeah, that was a great game to be a part of. And like you said, I mean, he had to two-hand squat and catch that ball, and then catch it and accelerate it to the end zone for us to get that win. That was one of the greatest wins in Virginia history as well too.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about Bill Musgrave, Elton. I really love Bill Musgrave. Funny story for you about Bill Musgrave. I actually got to meet him at a sports career conference when I was in college, and I was about 15 people in line, and I stood in line just to talk to him about the Continental Tire Bowl and tell him, you know, how much I loved him and how much I loved that game and just loved him as an offensive coordinator. And he talked about the Continental Tire Bowl. All he said was, "Yeah, man, we got it going."
Yeah, man, he was like, you know, we only got to spend that first season together, because of course, you know, everybody he was highly sought after that season. But the mind for the game that he had, it was just so amazing. And to be able to be a part of it, to be a part of that offense and learn so many things from him, it was a blessing. He was definitely instrumental in getting us rolling, and you know, the way his playbook and those type of things. And once he left, it was, you know, Coach Prince had took over, and we kind of just got it rolling. But Musgrave was instrumental in getting us to that point. So, but you talk about a great, not just a great offensive mind, but a great coaching mind. So to be around that kind of helps anybody's career. I know it helped mine. So, and it was a reason why we had so many guys going to the NFL and playing on, because, you know, the knowledge that we got from our coaching staff was amazing.
Yeah, you know, Elton, one of the fascinating things that Musgrave did with that 2002 offensive line, that it was just a thing of beauty watching Matt Schaub run screens with you guys. And, you know, obviously you need a great pulling guard to run a great screen, right? And you're the guy. And I was just curious, like before that season, was there anything that Musgrave like saw or just told to you guys, be like, listen, like we're going to be tossing a lot of passes to the running backs and fullbacks because you guys are so good at moving in space?
The thing, no, it wasn't. The thing that we were trying to get to was being a good running team, and early on, we didn't run the ball particularly well. So, being a great offensive coach, I mean, you find other ways to get the ball in the back pans that's considered a run. Like a screen is basically, in a sense, considered an extended run. So he was just amazing at getting these different screens and things going to grasp those running yards that we couldn't get traditionally on the ground. And eventually we became one of the best running teams in the ACC in the country. But early on, we kind of struggled running the ball. And then we continued to go and recruit and put together a great offensive line. But his job was to find ways to grab that hit yardage that we couldn't get running the ball. So his thing was to find ways to get these run yards in non-traditional ways. And, you know, Andy Reid was big with it in Philadelphia, the screen game. So just finding ways to take advantage of that, of those yards.
Yeah. The screen is one of the most unstoppable plays in football in my eyes when it's run properly. And it was just a thing of beauty watching Shaw screen with the backs and guys like you getting out in front blocking. It was really just, it was an art form the way you guys ran the screen, quite honestly. I mean, you could look back in college football, that team ran the screen just about as good as any team in college football history. There's no question in my mind. Let's talk about Matt Schaub a little bit, Big E. What was it like playing with a quarterback like Matt Schaub?
It was like being on the field with another coach. He was so well prepared. He always knew who was going to be where and what to do. He knew what the defense would give us, those type of things. So it was like having an extension of the coaching staff on the field with you. And he was successful, and he made himself into a better player each year. That's the thing, like in college football, that you want to do. You want to continue to get better each year. He had a rough stint early on, but he fought his way back and continued to work. And he was in the Heisman campaign before he got hurt his senior season. I hate that happened, but it showed how hard that he worked to get to that point.
Yeah, Matty Schaub, one of the best. He really mastered the art form of the screen. And, I mean, we had so many weapons on that team. Jason Snelling was another player on that team that was incredibly underrated in my eyes. And he had a really good NFL career that a lot of people forget about. Jason Snelling. That guy had exceptional hands, man. He was really fun to watch.
Good hands. He had good hands. He had good vision. He's one of those guys where I think he was a running back in high school. And, of course, when he got there, you know, we had so many great running backs, so he was asked to play fullback. And we were using the fullback in, like, the non-traditional setting. But then he understood, and, I mean, he would get back there and line up in the I formation and line up in the offset and go kick those guys out on the power. So when you talk about being a good fullback, just the run game, it excelled because of guys like him. And Case Luzar played fullback as well, so it made my job easier because when I pull around there, if it's clean for me, it's a whole lot easier. So those guys would make the read so easy for me. It's either they're kicking or they're scooping, and both of those guys were so good at realizing what to do and making that decision within a split second. So it made it a whole lot easier for me to get around there. That's why we're so good at the power game. People just see me pull around there and do what I do, but it takes the front side double team. It takes a good fullback kick out for me to get around there and do those things. So, you know, I just got the benefit from it, but it was a lot that went into it.
Absolutely. I got another Alvin Pearman story for you that popped into my head. Alvin Pearman, I'll never forget this quote. Before the 2004 season, I remember Al Groh had made a point of he wanted Virginia to play more physical football. So Alvin Pearman talked about collision drills that you guys ran in fall camp, and I want you to tell me about this. Pearman said you guys would line up 20 yards apart and meet in the middle, like one-on-one collision drills. And I remember Pearman was talking about that. He's like, we were running collision drills in fall camp, like 20 yards apart. He's like, I was thinking, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't quite 20 yards, but it was a drill called 2-spot or 3-spot or 4-spot. It didn't matter. It would be a ball carrier and it would be two guys blocking. So it could be a guard and a wide receiver. It could be a guard and a tackle. It could be a center and a guard. It could be anybody. And on defense, you would match up, of course, if it was a lineman, you would match up with a lineman. You would match up with a linebacker. And then it would be a linebacker waiting for the running back. So the job was for offense to score, and the job for defense was to stop them from scoring. And it got to a point where that drill was so fun that we would be excited to get to practice to do it because it was about competition. But we knew it would make each side of the ball better. So we would get to the point where we were running to practice and like coming into the locker room, we would look on the schedule to see if we had 2-spot or 3-spot. Because we knew the excitement of it. We knew how fun it was going to be. And in camp that year, now when you had went 2 or 3 tour days in a row and your body's hurting, of course, and you look up there and you see 2-spot, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. But when you get out there, man, it's time to compete and it's time to have fun. So it wasn't quite 20 yards. It was definitely a collision, and it was a collision every play. But it got us to the point where we wanted to be about being a physically, mentally tough football team, and that's what we became.
Absolutely. I got a question for you about a play in the 2002 Continental Tire Bowl. I got to rewatch that before I got to interview you today. Lundy had 201 total yards in that game, 4 TDs, Continental Tire Bowl MVP. Absolutely incredible game for Wally. I want to talk about the play where Wally had a 48-yard TD off a screen where he was running down the sideline. The West Virginia guy tried to tackle him. He spun while running full speed and still scored.
He actually spun the wrong way. He actually, it was crazy because you would think how he got hit, he would spin the opposite way. He actually was spinning into the hit, and he still. I mean, he was such a great player that he got hit spinning the opposite way and was able to get his balance and just shoot down the sideline. Yeah, that was. I laugh about it because it's funny, man. And like I said, he spit the wrong way, but we gave him hell about that play too. But when you score 4 touchdowns, man, and you the MVP, you can take that type of criticism. But yeah, I remember that play.
It's funny because rewatching that play on the instant replay, you blocked your guy just enough to where he wouldn't get Wally in the backfield because. Sometimes you don't even have to hit a guy. You just have to alter his course of direction just enough. And that guy's direction was changed ever so slightly, so he couldn't get Wally in the backfield. And that play was a great play that showed Wally's exceptional balance, man. Like that guy had amazing balance and just incredible hands. One of my all-time favorite Virginia football players ever.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. Definitely, it was a great play. It was funny, but it was a great play.
Talk about the Continental Tire Bowl against Pittsburgh. It's funny. I remember I was talking to my brother about the Continental Tire Bowl against Pittsburgh, and he was talking about how our DBs were holding Larry Fitzgerald the whole game. I'm like, I don't remember that, but it was just funny to me that. On that one play, Pittsburgh tried to punch it in. They were on the goal line. I'll never forget that play. It was 4th and goal on about the 1-yard line. I remember looking at Larry Fitzgerald on the sidelines, and they tried to run it right up the middle at Ahmad Brooks and Kai Parham, and they absolutely stoned them at the goal line. Like, talk about playing with Ahmad Brooks and Kai Parham. I mean, really, 2 of the more physically gifted players ever to play for Virginia, especially Ahmad, who was, man, that play he made in the Virginia Tech game where he cleared the line before Brian Randall got out from under the snap, just a physical freak.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of like a LeVar Arrington at Penn State. He could do everything. He could cover. I remember a game where we played Maryland. He dropped back into Tampa 2 and got down the middle of the field and caught 2 interceptions in one game. He could meet your running back in the backfield. He could go sideline to sideline. He had everything you needed to play that position, and he played it well for us. And Cal was like the hammer. Like Cal's gonna be the one that, hey, if this fullback trying to get downhill, Cal's gonna knock him out. So when you get to a point where you can, in the system that we ran at 3-4, if you get to the point where you get 2 guys like that inside, that one could do everything and one was that hammer, you're gonna have great success on defense. And our defense right behind those guys. And as you can see, just that stand, we had a couple stands. We had a stand in the North Carolina game where they had second, I think it was 3rd and goal from the 1, and we stopped them 2 plays in a row. We had that stand in Pittsburgh. We had a couple of those where those guys stood up and made plays. So it was great playing with those guys. To me, coming off the field, like I was trying to catch my breath real fast, so I could stand up and cheer these guys on, but watch more so as well.
Yeah, Ahmad, I'll never forget the spring game when Virginia fans got their first glimpse of Ahmad Brooks, one of the most highly touted recruits ever to play at Virginia. When I first got to see that guy in action, I've never seen the Virginia football crowd ooh and ah about a player. Like watching that guy go sideline to sideline in the spring game. I mean, it was like fans were watching like 4th of July fireworks. Like it was like unbelievable. That guy, to this day, like I love watching Ahmad Brooks play so much. I mean, that guy had 117 tackles as a true freshman. That is absolutely disgusting. Like,
yeah, he was a great talent, and I mean, just could play any position on the field. Like, I mean, he could play running back. He was one time we opened up the season, he was a kickoff return guy. So he was just a freak athlete and could do anything you needed him to do.
Let's talk about Heath Miller a little bit, Biggie. You gave Heath Miller the nickname Big Money, right?
It was a couple of we did. Because every time, it's first we could say he came in as a quarterback. So for him to come in and Coach Gross said, "Look, we need you to play tight end," for him to put the team before himself was great. And then he went on to become one of the best tight ends to ever play in the ACC. He won the Mackey. But anytime we used to call it red zone like the money zone. So, it was one of those things where we know it was like big money time. And you couldn't do anything with him because if you line up out there and you put a linebacker on, it's too fast for him. If you put a DB on, it's too big for him. So it was pick your poison. And then if we do put him out there, you take a linebacker out, we're gonna run the ball. And if you put a DB out there, we're gonna throw it up to him. So it was one of those things where you couldn't be right, and he made us right a whole lot. And that's, like I said, he was always money. So that's why he was big money.
Yeah, I mean, he made so many plays at Virginia. One of them that really stood out to me was watching the clips of it. The Clemson pylon dive where he dove from about 5 yards out. Like that was absolutely ridiculous for a tight end.
Yeah, one of the greatest. That was Thursday night game, man. Just to have a mindset to switch the ball. He had the ball in his right hand and switched it to his left and dove and reached out for it. So, I mean, like I said, it says a lot about how athletic he was, but the smarts that he had for the game as well.
Yeah, with Heath Miller, I'll never forget the name Andy Heck as long as I live, because I know he's the guy who got the credit for switching, Heath, from quarterback to tight end, right?
Yeah, and he had, and I know he got a lot of the credit and the praise, which was well deserved. But just to see what he did with that tight end room in general, Pat Estes was another great one we had. He just had a different role, but just to see what he did with the tight end room was amazing. And then it set up a run of tight ends too. We had some great tight ends and UVA history as well. So, but yeah, Coach Heck was great, man, and he was even greater, like in the film room as well, because he was another guy who understood the game so much. We were credited with, and we were blessed with a great coaching staff that knew so much and had so much knowledge, and that's why a lot of those guys end up going and getting jobs in the NFL, because it showed how much knowledge they had and what they knew.
Yeah, I agree. You guys did have a great coaching staff. Talk to me a little bit about the process of getting drafted, Big E, and what was that like for you in terms of just leading up to the draft, like the process of training and then getting drafted, and just what that process was like for you.
I mean, it's no different. Of course, you got the anxiety of, where am I going to go, where am I going to end up. But you train and you do everything to get ready for this moment. And to me, it was just all about preparing for the next step, and the next step was going to be the NFL. So this training, I ended up going down to New Orleans and worked out with Tom Shaw. In New Orleans at that time, there was some great guys down there working out as well. But being down there working out and just getting prepared mentally and physically, and draft day comes, you get drafted, and now it's like on to, like, that's out of the way. So now it's on to the next thing, and the next thing is going to perform and show that you were worthy of wherever you were drafted at, worthy to go perform and be on that team. So it was fun, man. It's a fun time. Your dreams get to come true, but then I still got to go out here and do the work as well.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about the Super Bowl, Big E, with the Cardinals. I didn't even realize you were in on that play until I looked. They were playing the James Harrison return that he had to this day, the most ridiculous play I've ever seen a D lineman make. When James Harrison picked off the pass from Kurt Warner and took it 100 yards for a touchdown. Absolutely insane for a man that big to take the rock that far. Like, absurd.
Yeah. It's I mean, that game was it's great. It's always tell a story of when you're a kid or when you play a certain game or whatever it is. You always want to play at the biggest game in your sport. If I'm playing basketball, I want to play in the NBA Finals. If I'm playing football, I want to play in the Super Bowl. So to be able to participate in that game was a blessing. That play, like you said, I mean, that was it was sick. I hate it had to be against us. So every time they show, greatest plays in Super Bowl history, of course, that play is going to be up there. So we got to relive that moment a couple times. But just to be in that game, we got to play against the Steelers. Heath Miller was on that team, coached by Mike Tomlin, who's from my hometown. So to be able to play against those guys and play on that stage, man, it was amazing. It was a blessing.
Talk to me a little bit about playing with Kurt Warner, Big E. Really, Hall of Famer, incredible story from Kurt Warner. It was so much fun watching him play with the Rams and with you guys on the Cardinals. Talk about Kurt Warner a little bit.
Kurt was it was like playing with Matt Schaub again. Of course, like on a professional level, but the amount of preparation that Kurt would put in, he was like listening to him in the huddle talk about what's about to happen. So, like it was just crazy. Like he could read, like he was like a fortune teller or something. Like he could read like the defense. It was just, you had to be in the huddle to kind of understand the greatness. But just to know, like he was sitting there and within those 10 seconds, he would tell everybody, like, if they do this, you do this, or I'm going to be looking for this because I know they're going to roll to this. And it was just to do that every play, like it was amazing. So I mean, I was fortunate enough to share the huddle with, to me, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. His story speaks for itself, but he was definitely a leader. He was always well prepared, and it carried over to our team. And I take those lessons with me in life in general now, because like it didn't matter. Like as much as he had to fight, and as much as people were against him, he continued to show up every day prepared, and you can see what it did. It worked wonders, and you don't get in the Hall of Fame by accident. So it's definitely well deserved.
Yeah, you're right, Biggie. That's a good quote that you don't get in the Hall of Fame by accident. Kurt Warner, really one of the best ever to do it, man. There's no question about it. I got an interesting question for you, Biggie. What is the funniest thing that anyone said to you on the line of scrimmage as a D lineman? Because I know a lot of stuff goes on between the lines. I want to hear some good. What's the funniest thing that any D lineman, linebacker, whoever said to you pre-snap?
I remember playing against Brian Young. Brian Young was like 18 years in when I was a rookie, and I remember going against him, and I was, I'm a rookie, and we're playing the 49ers, and still vet. He was still strong, and he was still strong like he had just came in the league. But I remember just going so hard against him, and and one of the plays, like our helmet had got stuck together. So it was just while they were trying to get our helmets, like, look, young fella, like, calm down, man. Just calm down. I'm like, look, man, you done played 18 years, man. You done played 18 years, but I'm trying to make my mark, man. So that was one of the funny things. Like it was just look, man, just calm down, young fella, calm down. So that was funny. That was a funny one.
Your guys' helmets got stuck together.
Yeah, and it was because I was going super hard. Like I said, I'm a rookie. I'm trying to prove myself. So just he was just calm down, young fella. Calm down.
That's funny, man. I got an interesting question for you. You're from the Tidewater area. I saw you worked at Mike Vick's football camp one time. I'm curious. Who is the better football player coming out of high school? We'll go Mike Vick, Allen Iverson, or Ronald Curry.
I had this question to Mike. So the thing with Iverson was we didn't get to witness multiple years of him playing. So that's one of the reasons. Like he would be probably one of the most dynamic if he had played all 4 years. So it takes us to Michael Vick and Ronald Curry. Like Michael Vick was he had like one receiver. He had a good running game. So it was kind of like spread around. Like Ronald Curry was like the focus point, and he won every game that he played. So like he was that dominant, but he was a sight to see, and on the basketball court as well as the football field. So I would have to go with Ronald Curry. I think he's the most decorated football player, not just in the peninsula, but the state of Virginia of all time. I just wish he would have came to UVA like he said he was.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of puzzled by that because, I mean, from my standpoint, we had better quarterback coaches too, So I was puzzled by that. But, he ended up having a pretty decent pro career, and he's with the Saints now, I saw. He's a wide receivers coach, but absolutely, Biggie. Ronald Curry, absolutely incredible football player. Vic Hall broke his yardage record.
Yeah, but I tell people too, and I'm all for it. But it was so many like Ron did that surrounded by so many other great players. So he did have to share the wealth when it came to total yardage. That's not taken away from Vic breaking his record, but like those guys would you still think about a guy going out there and scoring 50, 60, 70 points and then sitting down the fourth quarter. So how many more yards he would have had. So it's just amazing that guy was able to do that and do it week in and week out for 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Ronald Curry, one of the greatest ever to do it in Virginia high school football history. There is no question about it, Biggie, and that's a good choice. I wanted to talk to you about getting your jersey retired at UVA. Talk about that and how special that was for you in 2011.
I mean, it's for one, it's amazing. Let me first start say that. But like when you come into a school or things like that, you just want to be the best player you can be, and however that may be, whatever you got to do. So to eventually play and get your jersey retired shows how much work you did and what they think about you. So I mean, to me, it was a credit to the guys that played with me, played beside me, the fans, all those types of people, because without those guys, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, but it was amazing.
Absolutely, Biggie. Well, really appreciate you taking all the time to talk to me, my man. You are a college football legend in your own right, and one of the greatest ever to do it here at Virginia, my man. It was a thing of beauty watching you destroy people in the open field, man.
I appreciate it, man. It was a pleasure up here. Anytime you want me up, just let me know. It was great. I appreciate you taking the time to have it.
All right. Sounds good, Biggie. Thanks so much. Take care.
You too.
You've been listening to the Flow Theory Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and TuneIn.